Talk about plan A and plan B. Initially, Hashem had said to Adam, you should not eat of the tree of knowledge. And if you will eat, he will die. Die means he will be subject to death. The world will no longer be eternal. He will no longer be an eternal person. The world will take on a whole different direction and will function in a much lesser capacity. It will be a flawed existence, and therefore, to achieve the end result, there'll be many other approaches how to achieve that. Man has to address many challenges, experience many challenges, ultimately to come upon the end result. It's what we call perfection. So the question is, if Hashem knows and is in the future, and he knows ultimately he's failing, he's going to fail. So just let's go to plan B. What do we need plan A? I think that was the discussion we were having yesterday. Now, we explained the basic differentiating characteristic between a human being and any other species is we have choice. And because man has free choice, therefore he's held accountable and deserving for any action he does, because it's only due to his own initiative that he either does the right thing or he does the wrong thing. Although he may be inclined to do the wrong thing, but man has the ability to rein in on himself not to do the wrong thing. So if he does the wrong thing, although he had the ability, because he had the ability not to do the wrong thing, to rein in on himself, if he does the wrong thing, he's held accountable. And when he does the right thing, he's considered meritorious, deserving, because he only did the right thing because he took the initiative to do the right thing. So ultimately, that is the concept, because it's only through man's initiative, because we explained in Neiman Rabchal, if a human being would do things naturally, right, and he would have no control, and naturally would do the right thing, the action is not attributed to himself. It's only due because he naturally does the right thing, because that's why God created the human being. And to be the ultimate beneficiary of good, which is having a relationship with Hashem, you have to have established that level of commonality, just as Hashem, his level of perfection is not attributed to anybody but himself. Identically, the human being, his level of achievement is attributed to himself, not that it comes natural to him. It's only due to his own initiative. As a result of that, we establish this commonality between the human being and Hashem. Therefore, as a result of that, the person is able to have that more special relationship with Hashem, because he reflects those characteristics of Hashem, that the achievement or the perfection is not attributed to anybody other than himself, as Hashem's perfection is not related to anything but himself. That's the Ramchal's explanation. So initially, the human being, Adam, was given the ultimate chance to achieve the ultimate, and he had the ability not to fail. God knew he would fail. Doesn't make a difference. But you're given the choice to achieve the ultimate. He knew he'd fail. But knowing he failed doesn't mean to say he didn't have the ability to succeed. So therefore, there's a plan B. Because plan A had to be in place because he had to, in reality, have the ability to make a choice. And he made the choice. Unfortunately, he made the wrong choice. Now that he made the wrong choice, now we have to deal within the context of the wrong choice, dealing with all the issues to bring about the end result, which is considered perfection, in the second scenario situation. And therefore, that's what we're dealing with for the past almost 6,000 years to achieve that level of perfection, which will take place before the year 6,000 comes. That's what it's all about. You want to do the wrong thing. You want to do the wrong thing. Hashem says, it's up to you. You go into free fall. You just go with the current. You go with your inclination. If you want to do the right thing, because you chose to do the right thing, one needs what we call siyata d'shmaya, divine assistance to do the right thing. But what activates the divine assistance? It's the will, the choice to do the right thing. So now Mark has said something. Ultimately, we need Mashiach. It's true. So the Gemara has a discussion in Sanhedrin. When will Mashiach come? It could come in one of two contexts, either Kula Zakai or Kula Chayev. Either we're meritorious and we're worthy of Mashiach, and therefore Hashem will bring him. Of course, we ourselves are ready for real time. Well, no, we're not there yet. But Hashem has to create a setting which creates literally almost impossible situation. We have no choice but to make the right choice. Because things will become so difficult, we're only making that right choice because we can't tolerate and deal with the pain and the suffering which Hashem will bring upon us, and that's what we're going to do tshuva. And that's what we're going to do the right thing. So did we achieve the ultimate level? We didn't achieve the ultimate level. Because why we didn't tshuva? Only because of what? Because, as it says, even if Hashem has to install a king that his decrees are more evil than Haman or Russia, he will do it because ultimately we have to do tshuva and we have to do the right thing regardless. But of course, it's our choice. It is our choice. But it's considered in the inferior context of choice. Of course, it's not due to our own initiative in a willing sense, but literally we're compelled to do the right thing.
So that's free choice under duress.
Correct. I'll give you an example. The Midrash tells us that we have the tochacha in the Torah, that if the Jews go south rather than north, God forbid all the curses are going to come upon Klal Yisrael. So the Midrash says, the Midrash I think is in Noach, if I remember correctly, that in the history of this existence, there's no nation in the world where God began punishing the nation, with ultimately the nation was destroyed due to God's punishment. Why? Because every nation, when God chooses to start punishing them, they bolt and they become even more intransigent, more rebellious. And the more rebellious they become, the more God punishes them till he destroys them. Klal Yisrael, when he punishes us, nichnoim v'nasan tshuva. We become humbled, we submit, and we do tshuva. And this really has to do with what the Rambam says in Hilchos Gerushin. A Jew innately wants to do the right thing. We get all fouled up with the evil inclination. But the core of the Jew is to do the right thing. So when you twist the Jew's arm, when you put in a situation under duress, pain, he gets it. Now he becomes humbled, he submits, and he does the right thing. But why is he doing the right thing? Of course, what precipitated the right thing was the pain. But why did he open his eyes? But factually, he opened his eyes, and he's doing the right thing now because he appreciates and understands what the right thing is. The non-Jew never comes to that point. And because he doesn't come to that point, therefore God ultimately destroys him because he's not willing to submit to Hashem. That's the Medrash. So you're right, qualitatively speaking, it's considered not a qualitative tshuva because God had to open our eyes for us. We didn't open our own eyes. So it could be one or two scenarios. I'll give you an example. What's going on today? People say, a year has passed since October 7th, and, we're back where we started. The strife in Israel, the left, the right, and many people say it's not true, and it's not true. As a result of what happened on October 7th, pre-7th, after 7th, the level of the secular Jew in Israel, or the Masorati Jew, the traditional Jew, he upgraded his Judaism, and he sees Judaism in a much more positive context. Of course, there are all those hardcore leftists. They're not changing, and they want to undermine the system. But a very, very significant number of the people who are on the other side of the fence have come over. Not that they became devout or observant, but they're doing much more than they did before, whether they're putting on tefillin, whether they're wearing tzitzis, whether they're observing the Shabbos to whatever degree. That has changed. So the scenario was we had to suffer that extreme level of pain and suffering, but still, people have short memories, and they're still going. They're going in that direction. They're attending classes. They want to know. There's a curiosity that was activated, because the question is, if factually we behave no different than the non-Jew, why is there global anti-Semitism now? Why do they hate us? We're no different than they are. We don't live in Israel. We couldn't care about Israel, but there's still anti-Semitism. Doesn't make a difference. So evidently now people understand it has something to do with being a Jew. And that's activated all this quest for understanding and curiosity. What does it mean to be a Jew? And that precipitated it. What precipitated the pain? But after we had the pain, but we're chugging along on our own because of what happened. It's not at this moment you're doing tshuva because I'm twisting your arm. So it's like there's like a happy medium over here. It's not under duress. Sinai, Hashem put the mountain over our heads and says, look, either you accept, you're going to be buried under the mountain. Now, that's not what he said over there. There were these atrocities. There was this, what happened there? It was painful. We were shocked. So if we would have done tshuva on the spot, and that was the moment, okay. But that activated and touched people where now they've started to think. And they're still thinking, what's going on? Anti-Semitism, factually, is a bracha for Klal Yisrael. It's a bracha. Why? Beryl Wine used to say that, in the 19th and early 20th century, why did Jews not assimilate? Not because the Jew didn't want to assimilate. Many Jews wanted to marry the non-Jew. The non-Jew would not want to marry the Jew, because it was against the church. If you married a non-Jew, you were ostracized, and maybe you were even put to death by the church in the 19th century in Europe. Later, when things eased up and there was more equality, then God, unfortunately, things started to unravel and come apart. That's when assimilation really went full force. So it's again, anti-Semitism means the non-Jew is not interested in the Jew. I don't want anything to do with you. And that causes us to stay a level of course and create a certain interest or curiosity, which allows us some breathing room to be able to focus on what we should be focused on. I brought Adam into the Garden of Eden. He says, I created this beautiful world, almost perfect. And there's a garden. There's every species of trees here. The world is nearly perfect. It's up to you. Either maintain it and perfect it, or you will destroy it. That's what he told him in advance. What the consequence and the ramifications of his eating of the tree of knowledge would be. He says, please don't destroy my world. I gave you almost a perfect world. It's like a father brings a son into a business and he's ready to retire. He says, look, I built this business over my whole life. It works, it functions, and you're going to be responsible. I hope you really maintain it, because I'm not able to continue any longer. The son goes in, destroys it all. He starts making changes, innovations, and he thinks he's going to better it, and he takes it into bankruptcy and destroys the business. That's what Adam did. He thought he knew better, and that's why he ate of the tree of knowledge. The Arizal says, why did Adam eat of the tree of knowledge? What was his rationale? How do you justify it? God openly says, don't eat. How do you eat? So the Arizal says, there's a concept known as Lefum Tzara Agra, which we read in Pirkei Avos, that the greater the challenge, the greater the reward, because it shows a greater level of dedication. So if things are clear, black and white, and it's not that difficult to make the right choice, so therefore the end result doesn't have the same value. But if the challenge is a serious challenge, and despite the challenge you succeed, therefore it shows a greater level of dedication. Before eating the tree of knowledge, everything was pretty much black and white. There was no inner inclination to do the wrong thing. It was external. Adam says, yeah, but now it's easy. if I eat of the tree of knowledge, this was the rationale to justify it. Now there's a certain degree of confusion. The whole area is gray. Within the gray, I have to see the right thing. So now I'm greater servant of Hashem when I do the right thing. Therefore, I'm going to eat of the tree of knowledge. It was his justification. Because otherwise, how do you justify it? Noah is mentioned 3 times in the Pasuk. Why? Because we said he's the equivalent of 3 different people. He's pre-flood, during the flood, and post-flood. Noah post-flood, the world takes on a whole different context of function. People don't live these unlimited years any longer. And I mentioned yesterday in the Orach Chaim HaKodesh that initially the soul was a different type of soul. It was what we call a mega soul. And you needed hundreds of years to be able to address the levels of perfection that was needed. But because God decided, he's going to take that soul and break it into 10 pieces. So that big, larger soul is now 10 different people. So 70 years is sufficient to address whatever is needed to achieve what has to be achieved. Okay? So now, I always say, based on science and medicine, life expectancy has been extended. Why? At one time, in the time of the Ramah, in the 1600s, life expectancy was 50 years. 50 years, person already was considered an old person. The Ramah passed away, he was in his 40s. That was not unusual for people to die. People in the earlier part of the 20th century, before they had antibiotics, before they had penicillin, person came down had pneumonia, he died. People had heart attacks. There was no way to deal with many things. All things change. New discoveries. Life is extending itself. What's going on? Evidently, God is giving us more time. Why is he giving us more time? The answer, the way I understand it, is because, like the Gemara says in 2 locations, that Mashiach cannot come until all souls are born into existence. There's a trove called a soul trove. Until all those souls are born, Mashiach cannot come. So Tosas asks a question. So what happens if it's time Mashiach to come and the souls haven't yet been born into existence yet? So Tosas answers, what's going to happen is there can be multiple births. Now the single births, there can be multiple births. So because it has to be expedited. So I always say, in the past 35 years, 40 years, there's a new area of medicine. It's called fertility. People have twins, triplets, multiple children born at one time. Why all of a sudden now, not earlier? The answer is because we're coming closer to the end. All those people, those children have to be born into existence. Many things are happening now. Why now? The answer is because we're coming very close to the end. And if it's Ikvus and the Mashiach, we're holding at the end, things have to be put in place before he comes. And God is orchestrating whatever's happening to make sure that we're ready for real time. That's what's happening. He was tzaddik b'dorosov in his generations. What does it mean in his generations? He was a tzaddik. What do you mean in his generations? So there's an argument in the Gemara. What exactly does the Torah want to communicate to us? Is it l'shevach or is it l'genai? Is it for praiseworthiness? That despite all the negative influences and the positions of humanity, Noach chose to be the tzaddik. So that's the Torah's person pointing out something very praiseworthy. Or the Torah's pointing out something negative. That he was only a tzaddik relative to the people of his generations. But if he would have been the generation of Avram Avinu, he would have been considered ordinary. He wouldn't have been considered as special. Versus Avram Avinu. That's the question. B'dorosov yesh mersein doshnosel l'shevach koshkem shilohoye b'dor tzadik moye tzadik yoser. If despite the negative society, influences of the world, he was a tzaddik. So if the influences would have been greater, positively speaking, he would have been a greater tzaddik. The other interpreted negatively. Tzaddik, relative to his generation, he was a tzaddik. If he would have been the generation of Avram, he wouldn't have been anything to be impressed with compared to Avram Avinu. Okay? Now, some Rishiv once said something. They're not arguing in the fact. Factually speaking, compared to Avram Avinu, Noach was ordinary. And factually speaking, despite all the challenges, he accomplished tremendously. He was a tzaddik, relatively speaking. The question is only, what is the Torah trying to communicate to us? The positive aspect or the negative aspect? But the reality is not arguing the reality. If compared to Avram, he would have been considered nothing. If he would have had the influences of Avram's generation, he would have been greater. Right? That's only discussion. What's the Torah exactly want to communicate to us? The Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos that there were 10 generations from Adam to Noach, and it tells us how patient and tolerant God is, and he only destroyed the world after 10 generations. From Noach to Avram, there were 10 generations, again. So why didn't he destroy the world? It says, Avram kibel schar keneged kulam. Avram received reward, the equivalent of all those 10 generations. So the Rabbeinu Yonah in his commentary on Pirkei Avos explains, God only maintains this world if ultimately, at the end of the day, they achieve a minimum level of accomplishment. But if they don't even meet the minimum, God says, it's not worthwhile for me to keep this existence. Avram Avinu, in his own right, what those 10 generations were supposed to achieve within the spiritual context, Avram as one individual achieved that. Therefore, he received reward for all the 10 generations because they didn't achieve what they were supposed to, and Avram brought about that level of what? Of achievement. And because he brought about that level of achievement, that's why God didn't destroy the world. Otherwise, he would have destroyed the world. God made a covenant with the world, which is the rainbow. He's not going to destroy the world. So what does it mean? It's only because Avram brought about that level of achievement. No, two separate things, like I explained. At Sinai, God said to us, I created this world for a purpose. If that purpose is not to be addressed, the world reverts back to pre-existence. Because we're not going to be able to achieve what we're supposed to achieve. So the same thing. If the world is not able to achieve a minimum, God says it's not worthwhile for me to keep this existence going. It's not I will destroy the world reverts back to pre-existence. Avram, because he was able to achieve what he achieved, and that achievement allowed that his descendants were ultimately going to be the nation who were going to be the chosen people, which was initially the objective of creation for the sake of Torah, and the only people of the descendants of Avram Avinu who are qualified to address whatever that achievement will be. Alan, you wanted to say something?